In this next article from Gateway Pundit, Republicans plan to occupy Georgia State House in response to Secretary of State ordering Dominion voting systems to be wiped. What? Whoa! Whoa! I am 4 hours, 2 minutes, and 47 seconds into this live stream right now. We've been covering voter fraud, statistical evidence for hours. If you want to find the video, the title of the video on YouTube is multi-state election fraud statistically proven, semicolon, Iran commander killed in drone strike, colon, report. In that video, I did 3-hour breakdown of the statistical proof. I am a computer scientist and engineer, author of the world's fastest number printing algorithm, the PUF algorithm, featuring fewer than half the division instructions of other integer printing algorithms, and it optimizes all floating point printing algorithms. So I have detailed knowledge of these computer systems. I have detailed knowledge of floating point numbers. I know how the math works. We went through the math. We went through the computer science and how it was that they were actually able to get these insanely crazy, sketchy graphs. It showed, here's a graph from Kent County, Michigan. Shows you all the votes from that in Republican percent Republicans in each precinct. You have 0% Republicans over here, 100% Republicans over here. I guess you could also say percent Democrats in the precinct. And what you'll see is that these okay, so you can vote straight party ticket, and so what they did was they compared the individual votes that weren't straight party to the straight party tickets, and what they found was that votes in precincts that were heavily Democrat, the average of the precincts votes was a straight line. And then the more Republicans there were in each precinct, the fewer votes Trump got from the individual votes. This in Kent County gave 40,000 votes to China Joe. Again, the same pattern happened again in Macomb County. You can see the straight line. This is early voting. Now you can see that there is a deviation that's a straight line when it's mostly Democrats. And the more Republicans you get, it takes a nosedive. That was 28,000 votes. Here's another. That was early voting. This is election day. Again, same pattern. Mostly Democrats, straight line. Then more Republicans. Now you have a weighted vote. Again, we see the same pattern in Oakland County. Here, this data is only available for early voting. And we can see that the same pattern holds in the heavily Democrat districts. The average deviation was a straight line in Democrat counties. And then the more Republican the county was, the fewer votes Trump got. The more votes China Joe got. Now we can look in Wayne County, the county that is heavily Democrat, and we can see because there's mostly Democrat looks, there's a straight line. In fact, it's going up. Trump did better. That's because he did better with the African Americans than Hillary Clinton did. And why did this happen? Floating point math errors. They used a floating point number. They used the Diebold Windows-based system. They used a 64-bit floating point number, which is why my engineering skills are good enough to cite as an expert. I am classified as an international expert in this because I wrote the fastest number printing algorithm, so I could tell you exactly how these work. I've got my own C++ library with the Sockets API, my own networking API. I make computer motherboards. I can make an entire voting machine from the ground up out of the parts at my house. It would be a hell of a lot more secure than this. And what you can see over here is that Bush Cheney got 95,126.02 votes. Bannar Kamkanga got 1,916.17. Carrie Edwards, who I helped canvass for to elect when I was brainwashed, radicalized feminist, got 120,360.63 votes. How do you get 0.63 votes? Floating point numbers. It's not an integer. It's like a floating point. And what does that do? It allows you to weight the vote. This is called a weighted vote. What they did was they used a math algorithm, and they said, whatever percent Republican is, I want you to take off this percentage of the votes out of the non-straight ticket votes. And what this does is it causes you to end up with fractions. You end up with numbers over here. And also, too, when you add and you multiply these numbers repeatedly over and over and over again, you get what are called floating point errors. You can't just add up a floating point number over and over and over and over and over again without getting wild swings in your output. It's not something that you can do and get a what is called a determinate result. You get a indeterminate result or a stochastic result, which is basically a random output. Kind of random. Send it. Still stochastic, given the inputs. Because what are they doing? They're multiplying. You should be getting, 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 3. You should never get a decimal fraction. The only way that you can get a decimal fraction is if your voting machines are compromised and they have floating point numbers and they're using really, really sketchy software from Diebold, Dominion Systems voting machines, and Smartmatic, the company that was owned by the Venezuelans. And who else were they connected with? Who else? I can't remember. Can somebody put in the comments who else Smartmatic is associated? It's not just Venezuelans. Now they said, oh, we debunked this claim. Oh, Dominion's not linked to Smartmatic or Venezuela. There was not subject to a U.S. Army raid in Germany. There was no soldiers who were shot at. You are not seeing this. You are dreaming. Facebook is going to come in and hang up the phone any minute. They're like, no, what this guy said is not true. Hang up the phone. So this says no. They sold Smartmatic. Video claims Dominion uses Smartmatic software. The Dominion is a front company for Smartmatic. Sabira Saba, communications director for Smartmatic, told Reuters via email for a previous fact check here. Smartmatic has never owned any shares or had financially stake in Dominion's voter systems. Smartmatic has always provided Dominion voting, has never provided them with the software, hardware, or other technology. All of this stuff came from Diebold. They're lying. They're like, oh, Smartmatic's never owned any shares or had any financial stake in Dominion voting systems. Yeah, that's kind of true. And so they're saying they weren't the current owner. And hold on. So let's check this out. So what you have to understand is that this software was created by the deep state. People think deep state's a conspiracy. No, there's always been a political science term called dual state. Dual state is where you have one state that the people think is the state, but then there's a group of cronies that control the government that are like they're high up in the government, and they create. It's another term for a deep state. Basically, a deep state is Most federal government employees work in they work in the Washington, D.C. area. Most of them live in the Washington, D.C. area, and they have friends and family there. These friends and family give references to their friends and family to get jobs at the federal government because it's the staple job there. It's like the good job, like you got the good job at the factory or at the mill. That is like the sought after job. That's what the federal government is there. That's the deep state. They hate Donald Trump. Why? Because they're anti-racist. They have institutionalized anti-racism there because of the Civil Rights Act, and they are. Because of this, they hate racist people because they fire them from work. If you're racist, they fire you. They hate racist people. So if they think you're racist, they're going to come after you. That's why they came after Trump, because Trump said, "Grammar mind the pussy," and build the wall. And Mexico is not sending us their finest people. So what does this say? It says multinational company that specializes. So Smartmatic is a multinational company specializes in building and implementing electronic voting systems. It also produces a smart city solution, including public safety, public transportation, identity management systems for civil registration, authentication products for government applications. They're here, and then elections, and then here's the United States. And so they're in the United States. So who funds these things? Who's been rigging elections for ever since we've been alive? Shah of Iran. The United States government. The CIA. The CIA has been rigging elections all around the world using technology that Smartmatic uses. All these people are all connected. So in 2016 Utah Republican presidential primaries, one where Hillary Clinton was on the ballot, in 2016 Utah Republicans caucus, where Utah Republicans voted to choose the party's nominee for president in the 2016 POTUS election, the voters had an opportunity to use traditional voting methods or to vote online. For online voting, the Utah Republican Party used an internet voting system developed by Smartmatic Cybernetica Internet Voting Center of Excellence based in Estonia. Republicans did this. See, remember, it's deep state. Deep state is these people are in control. It's the establishment. It's not just the Democrats doing it. It's also the Republicans doing it. Remember the Republicans that signed on the condemnation of QAnon. It's like, okay, what on earth is the Senate doing a condemnation of QAnon for? Like, I understand it sounds kind of batshit crazy, right? But there's this thing called the Bohemian Grove. You might have heard of it. Alex Jones did a lot of videos on it. It's actually real. It's a organization that Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon used to be in. Most powerful people in the world were in this organization. And at the Bohemian Grove, they do ritual human sacrifice. This is a real thing. It's not fake. It's not kooky. This is actually real. Go watch Alex Jones. Alex Jones did a number of specials on it, and what you'll see, they have this owl god. Inside of here, they sacrifice. They literally do mock human sacrifices of children. Quote unquote mock. They've been doing it for a long time, dude. This organization is so old, it's ridiculous. This is like, you want to talk about Illuminati, this is the Illuminati, man. It's real. These people actually exist. I'm not making any of this up. It's all been verified. This is 100% legit. See, we even see pictures of here we got a picture of Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon at the Bohemian Grove. This was from the Washington Post. Here we can see a mask from somebody at Bohemian Grove. There's a lot of people here at Bohemian Grove. And who is that? Here's a pretty old picture of them. So, QAnon, the satanic pedo cult. Right. So guess whose father used to be a member of this cult? Can someone type it in the comments below? Whose father was a member of Bohemian Grove? Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell's father was a member of Bohemian Grove. Now, who is Ghislaine Maxwell connected to? Oh, Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein. Ghislaine Maxwell's father engaged in blackmail using a hooker network. So Epstein got all his blackmail hooker network shit from Ghislaine Maxwell. So QAnon is Bohemian Grove. It's Bohemian Grove. Doesn't sound so kooky after all, huh? Don't forget, we also have cartels. Cartels have billions of dollars in drug money. They also run human smuggling networks and sex trafficking networks. Inside of a sex trafficking network, if you have an 18-year-old prostitute, you're highly statistically likely to find a 17-year-old prostitute. Where you have a 17-year-old prostitute, you're highly likely to find a 16-year-old prostitute. Where you have a 16-year-old prostitute, you're likely to find a 15-year-old prostitute, and so on down the line into pedophilia. So the notion of QAnon is not batshit crazy at all. If you hear any shit that is batshit crazy, it's called a disinformation campaign. Despite warning, back to the Wikipedia article, despite warnings from security expert, Utah GOP officials build the online voting system, which the state paid $150,000 to use. Multiple issues occurred with the system, with voters receiving error message, even being blocked from voting. Smartmatic received thousands of calls from Utah voters surrounding the issues of the process, the WAPO stated. I'm going to let you read the rest of this. We have another thing in Los Angeles County, which has about 5 million registered voters, began searching for a electoral system in 2009. So here, I don't want to read too much of this. We got to stay on point. Let's look up. See, the thing is, these people are like, oh, no, we reached out to these people and they said they didn't have a connection. So that means it's true. So, they said, no, oh no, our machines don't have any voter switching mechanisms in there. It's closed source where you can't really see it. It doesn't have any voting switching mechanisms. Except they use decimal numbers. Or floating point numbers. Why are you using a floating point number? Yeah, so we can multiply. So we can multiply fractions, so we can weight the votes. Just because they say they didn't do it does not mean that they didn't do it. But if I'm wrong, if Sidney Powell's wrong, don't forget you can correct this on GitHub at github.com/Kale or /RSS commentary /Kale McCullough /issues /112. If you can provide proof that they did not provide Dominion Systems with their voting software, well, just because they said they didn't do it does not mean that they didn't do it, because their voting software came from the deep state. They've been rigging elections all around the world, dude. The CIA has been doing this. Remember the Shah of Iran? They helped overthrow him. So we're going to get to later here the conflict in, where are we at? Here, let's go back to this article. Back to the Gateway Pundit article. Raffensperger claimed that he was ordering them to be reset ahead of the Senate runoff election. Was a reset would wipe all votes from the general election. The results would be which are still being hotly contested from the Trump campaign. What the heck? I mean, it's like, am I like dreaming? I must be just going crazy. I mean, it must just like somebody dosed me with some like crazy powerful LSD, and I'm like on one, bruh. I got schizophrenia. I'm like, woo. Here's a tweet from Mike Crowdy. The only reason why Georgia's Secretary of State would order the voting machines to be wiped in all caps is to destroy evidence. He's covering his crime. Well, of course, yeah. I think that would they're required by law to keep records of these. This is a federal election. You're required by law to keep these documents for so long. The deletion has been temporarily stopped on Sunday when Judge Timothy C. Batten Sr. issued an order to freeze all Dominion voting machines in the state of Georgia, but he reversed courses within hours. Deep state. Currently, there's a major fight going on. It appears that a short time later, a federal judge ordered officials to not reset the machine. Here's the lawsuit PDF, or at least some images. The volatile and unknown situation has led Republican activists and organizers to call for a full-on occupation of the Georgia State House on Monday, as well as protest at Secretary of State's house. Here's a tweet from Mike Crowdy. Breaking after the Secretary of State ordered the voting machines to be wiped in a blatant destruction of evidence, coalition groups plan to occupy the state capitol in all caps in Georgia on Monday, November 30th at 12 p.m. They also plan to protest outside of Secretary of State's house at 6 p.m. They said this claim about election fraud is being disputed. After the quote, after the Secretary of State ordered the voting machines to be wiped in blatant destruction of evidence, coalition groups plan to occupy the This is that same tweet. Just read it. So as you can see, not only have we proven the statistical probability of that the election was hacked is at greater than or equal to 10 black swans. A black swan means it's nearly impossible, but not impossible. It means that it's the lowest probability chance of anything that you can get. Now, when you have 10 black swans in a row, that means you just won the lottery 10 times, like Powerball. Like you got one Powerball ticket and every single number was the same. Or it's the same, but a mixed up combination of them that still wins the Powerball. You can't do that, man. It's not possible. You cannot have a graph that looks like this, where in Kent County, the percent of Republicans in each precinct, as it went up and there was more Republicans, the votes for Trump went down. I mean, we're talking about a margin of up to 30% went down. The more Republican it was, the worse Trump did. That was 45,000 votes for China Joe. In Macomb County, another 33,000 votes for China Joe. Again, we see the same pattern. In the Democrat areas, the line is straight. This is the average deviation from, or it's the mean around the line, like linear regression. And then as it got more Republican, both in early voting and on election day, and these would be, early voting would be a mail-in ballot, right? And then on election day, you see the same thing. In heavily Democrat areas, the line is straight. In more Republican areas, the line goes down. It should go up. Again, in Oakland County, same story, 40,000 votes for China Joe. Again, more Democrats, straight line. More Republicans, curved down, up to 30%. What's the vote? 30%, that one's down to 20. That's 20. The other one's down to 30. And then Wayne County, where Detroit, Michigan's at. And then it's mostly Democrats. And guess what? There's a straight line, but it's pointing up because Donald Trump did better. The line should point up if Trump's doing better. But no, it's because the voting machines uses floating point numbers. Here's a from the blackboxvoting.org. State of Alaska, 2004 general elections, November 2nd, 2004, unofficial results. What we see is Bush Cheney got 95,126.02 votes. How do you get 0.02 votes? How did Kerry Edwards get 120,360.63 votes in a Republican state? How did that happen? How do you get 0.63 votes? When you use a floating point number. Floating point number is like a decimal. It has a fraction less than 0. Integers, whole numbers. Can't have that. But if you use a floating point number, what do you get to do? You get to multiply by what? A weight. That's why you see a line here. They used a computer algorithm in the voting machine to switch votes from Trump to Biden. The election was rigged. It was completely rigged. In every single way, shape, and form, nationwide, the election was rigged. Systemic voter fraud coming from the deep state. Not even going crazy. Not at all. This is statistical proof. We also went in detail into the vote pattern analysis that showed you in detail. We did a 3-hour, dissected this, all of the stats. I'm a software and computer engineer. I know statistics. We went through. We proved the numbers. We showed that this is correct. Look, you have a huge spike in numbers. Look, that's what it should have looked like. It should have looked like that because the way the statistics work is in the beginning, you'll get wild swings. Look. See how the line isn't like a good curve like this? See how it's not a good curve? It's like, as you go on, the curve should not be as wild of a swing right there. It should look like a... That's what it's supposed to look like. That's a Bezier curve. That's what it's supposed to look like. Instead, it looks like this. China Joe just jumps up in the middle of the night. They sent the poll workers home. And then in the middle of the night, China Joe just jumps up in the lead from these batches that they collected all at once when nobody's looking. Happened again in Wisconsin. China Joe's losing. Should look like this. It's supposed to look like that, but it doesn't. It doesn't. It just jumps up. The probability chance that happens, it's like, okay. It's like your it's like, okay, so you got a small sample size of people and they're all voting. And some neighborhoods are heavily Republican, some of them are heavily Democrat. So if we look at the beginning here, we see these changes where it's like, okay, it's shooting it up, and then you'll see it changes. If you zoom in real close on it, kind of hard to see, you'll see that kind of it has this pattern that's not like a curve. And that's because your sample size is very small. But as your sample size gets larger, you should see smaller and smaller deviations from this, and it should look more like a curve. Instead, it looks more like a a Z. Or not a Z, but a shoots right up there in the middle of the night when nobody's looking. Then you can see. Now we can see when we analyze it using logarithms, using some basic logarithm rules. We can see when you analyze the statistics here on the x-axis are the China Joe and Trump votes. Left is China Joe. Right is Trump. Sorry, actually left is China Joe. Right is Trump votes. They switched them. Here's 0. This is the logarithm. If you don't know what a logarithm is, there's this number on your calculator called E. There's a natural logarithm. So click E, click ln, you get 1. That's because that's the exponent. That's because ln of E is 1. That's because, and then let's take E and square it. E times E is the number that's like pi. It's irrational. It's a thing in calculus that is related to the bell curve. So you take it, you square it, you get 2.7891. Now let's do ln, you get 2. Why? Because we squared it. So the ln will show you the exponent that we just gave. So the exponent shouldn't be very high. If the exponent is high, the vote count should be near 0 because it's like some precincts are heavily Republican, some of them are heavily Democrat. But then we'll see this really odd one way out here where China Joe got like 100 and... How many votes? How many votes did China get? 134,324 votes for China Joe, 93,684 for China Joe, or for Trump, I mean. And so that was a ratio of 1 to what? China Joe got 1.345 votes for every vote that was given to Trump. And then we'll see when we plot it with frequencies of vote weighted other. A lot of math in here. We'll see that anomaly ended up way off the scale. All of the other ratios were over here. It's a swing state. Should have been closer to a 1-to-1 ratio. In Wisconsin, same story. We can see that most of the numbers are closer to around 0 on the x-axis. And then we get this one oddball out here where China Joe got 5,490 for China Joe, 57 for Trump. So there was 96 votes for China Joe for every vote for Donald Trump, right? I mean, that can happen in California. So this one, okay, so hold on. $57 divided by this. So China Joe Trump got 10.38% of the vote. And then Biden got, hold on. $98% of the vote? No. China Joe did not get 98.96% of the vote. Oh, wait, but that batch of ballots. So, okay, that can happen. That can happen, but it's a small batch. It can. That's really weird, but it's not a lot of votes. That means maybe some people in one area committed ballot fraud through ballot harvesting or something, but that's not a lot of votes. But then we're looking at this one. We're looking at this blip right out here. What do we get? We get 2516163. So we get 25163 divided, 25163 divided by this. And we got Biden got 82.45% of the votes in that county. And remember, it's a swing state. In San Francisco, the bluest place in the entire country, 90% of people will vote for Democrats, but they never get above 95% of votes for Democrats. There's always 5% of people who are Democrats or Republicans. So that's not the sketchiest one. That's really sketchy because it's a swing state. And then we have Pennsylvania, which is the most sketchy, I think. No, it's Georgia was the most sketchy one, right? Again, we have the same thing. Along the axis, most of these things are so here's the 1, e to the 1. The 1, if it's anything over 1 and is way out here, it's going to be sketchy. Very sketchy. If it's under 1, if it's right here, it's not that sketchy. It just means it's a Democrat area and there's a lot of them and they really, it's like a blue wave. So you could see in other states here in Pennsylvania, here's the 0 axis. So you can see we do, this pattern exists. I was just telling you the pattern exists, but the numbers, the exponents, way less than 1. Way less than 1 because it just means it's a blue district. But no, that's Pennsylvania, but it still looks irregular. Here in Minnesota, we could see, again, the same pattern, but it's less than 1 out here. New York, still we got an outlier. Over 1, so that one's sketchy. 600,000 votes. That's a lot of votes. And so when you do a comparison, what you're going to get is, here's the scatter plot from all the states. And what you can do is you get this curve, this 1 over x curve. You do 1 over x, and there's something with the logarithms where you get 1 over x. And then you end up with this thing where you're supposed to have this curve here. And then you end up with these outliers. And these are the ones in question in the report in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia. These are all black swans. Each one is a black swan chance of that occurring. Now, if we go down, we can plot whenever we get rid of the negatives. So we put the Democrats and the Republicans in the same batch, so we can see these outliers pop out. They just pop right out, and you can see, woo, that one. This is the most sketchy one. This is the really, really, really sketchy one. And how many times did it happen? Twice. Twice in the same state. Twice in the same state did this happen. That's like you got a Powerball ticket and you got 2 winning lotto numbers on the same ticket. You got 2 black swans at the same time. So we've already covered, what do we have so far? Like 8 black swans. So it basically, we've won the lottery ticket. We've won the lottery 8 times in the same night, basically. 8 times doesn't happen. You might win the lottery once. You're not going to hit the lottery 8 times in the same day. Not going to happen. Not even in the same lifetime. Then we covered what else do we cover? Then we covered we also covered earlier the Zucker boxes. Mark Zuckerberg donated $400 million to rig the election. He bought ballot boxes called Zucker boxes in Pennsylvania. He paid the election counters. He paid the election judges. He paid for 1 Zucker box in Delaware County in Pennsylvania, which is a heavily Democrat area. Put a Zucker box, which is a ballot drop box, paid for by Mark Zuckerberg. He put it once every 4,000 or 4 square miles. Every 4 square miles, there was a Zucker box. In Republican counties, he put a Zucker box every 1,100 square miles. So there was one Zucker box for every 4,000 people in Delaware County. In Trump country, there was one Zucker box for every 72,000 counties. These ballot drop boxes had solar-powered security cameras on them. At night, the cameras turned off. They turned off. At which point in time, we suspect they ballot harvested. They went through, they opened the ballot boxes. They went through and scanned with the app your name. They checked to see if you're a Republican, and then they threw your ballot away. Then when they did input the ballot into the computer, they used a floating point number and they weighted it. If you're a Republican, you got 0.5 votes. If you're a Democrat, you got 1.5 votes. That's how you rig elections with voting machines. They also paid Rock the Vote, a hyper-partisan Marxist group on college campuses that I used to volunteer for back when I was a crazy radicalized feminist Marxist, volunteering for Osberg at Lane Community College. I was the treasurer of the Associated Students of Lane Community College. I worked for Rock the Vote. When I worked for Rock the Vote, I would not register a Republican to vote because I hated Republicans. I thought they were racist. I would only register Democrats to vote. If I thought you were a Republican, I would not talk to you. They gave Rock the Vote the passwords to go into the server and input it. They let these people take the ballots and correct whatever ballots that had stuff on them that they needed to like correct or something before they put through the machine. And they let them upload the information to the servers. Then the servers got malware on them. Well, no shit, Sherlock. The chain of custody for this entire election was bungled up. The entire thing was rigged. Where does this information come from? Phil Klein. He is the former Attorney General of the state of Kansas. He was also a state legislator and a district attorney of Johnson County. And I saw this on the Charlie Kirk show last night. And I've gone through, we've verified it all. Then look at this. Look. From the center square. GOP-led Michigan legislator to hold election hearings after glitch initially gave up to 5,000 Trump votes to Biden. Yeah, definitely taking votes from Trump and giving them to Biden. Oh, and then they verified this happened. This isn't like sketchy. This is absolute. Well, it is sketchy. This isn't fake news. They verified it. He said, "Oh no, it's just a computer glitch, man. It's just a software error." How many software errors do you guys have? How many counties was this in? 47 counties? 40 in Oakland County, and that was the one where we saw all these election irregularities. The lines that we just went over, that was all Michigan. Yeah, these voting machines are hacked. They're rigged, man. Absolutely rigged. This is deep state, bruh. Deep state, like for real. Dual state. State within a state. Cronies working up in Washington, D.C., like the kinds of people that did the free rave Rick Ross, flooded the ghettos with the crack. Same people, bro. I'm reasonably sure they've also hacked my computer. 2. Shortly after I discovered the deep state involvement in Wikipedia through the rigging of the far right, the white genocide pages on Wikipedia, through the rigging of the narrative, what they've done is they've actually, it's a cyber warfare operation from China. What they've done is China took over Wikipedia. Deep state works with extremely corrupt people. They work up at the top of the ivory tower. And they rigged Wikipedia in order to prevent us from enforcing our immigration policies through the white genocide narrative. They manufactured it. And they also have rigged the far right definition to expand the definition, because what they're doing is they're trying to beef up the size of the far right. They're trying to, and then what they do is it's called a left, right, center pivot strategy to overthrow the world with socialism. They're basically Nazis. They're National Socialists. They're working with China. China is trying to overthrow the world with National Socialism. They are not communists. They say they're communist, but they allow private property ownership. They're capitalist. They're a hybrid of capitalism and communism. That is National Socialism. They allow private property ownership. They have hundreds of millions of impoverished Chinese outside in the countryside, and they have filthy, stinking, rich Chinese people in the city. They have a very steep social hierarchy. It's not a flat social hierarchy. They don't have the communist flat social hierarchy. Farmers at the bottom, artisans above them, soldiers above them, and then government at the top with a possibility for a dictator. They also have millions of Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps. They use them for slave labor. That's called National Socialism, dude. That is the spitting definition of National Socialism. They're the same people who are involved in the freeway, Rick Ross, flooding the ghettos with crack. The crack babies, all that stuff from the 80s with the CIA funneling drugs, the planes that went down with the CIA coke. All these people are all tied together. They're all tied together. They're working with the Chinese Nazi Party. China Joe, his crackhead son, Hunter Biden, got over a $1 billion. It's like $1.5 billion contract for the company he was working for. He doesn't have any sort of degree in this. Like he's just, the only reason why he's there is because his dad was Vice President Biden in the Obama administration. And then also he's getting multi-million-dollar contracts from, I think it was the Ukrainian oil energy firm. I can't remember. Can you please put that in the comments down below? Biden or China Joe can't stick the money into his pocket because that'd just be blatant corruption. So he has his crackhead son do it. This is as sketchy as it gets. On top of that, you got goddamn QAnon with the Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove. This can't get any crazier, dude. Nothing. You just can't get any crazier. It's not possible to make this story any more insane. You've got Bohemian Grove. Here's a picture of Nixon and Reagan at Bohemian Grove. You've got them here's pictures of them doing ritual child sacrifice at Bohemian Grove with their owl god. Inside of the fire, they burn children alive. They sacrifice them to the owl. It's not even... Go watch the Alex Jones documentaries on this. This is a real organization. Ghislaine Maxwell's father was a member of this organization, and he had a blackmail ring using hookers. He used hookers to do blackmail rings. And then you got Epstein. What's Epstein doing? Oh, they got the quote-unquote sex trafficking network. I don't think they were sex trafficking. I think it was a referral network. The people who were doing the sex trafficking were actually the victims. One woman would give Epstein a massage and then have sex with him. And then she would go refer another girl, and she would get a referral fee. And Ghislaine Maxwell would give her that. So the person giving the money was Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein was the John. Ghislaine Maxwell's father was the person who taught her how to do this through the Bohemian Grove. So QAnon is Bohemian Grove. All of the other stuff that they do sacrifice children. And then everything else you heard was a disinformation campaign to discredit it. Can't get any more crazier than this. I'm not crazy at all, dude. I don't believe in anything without evidence. I'm a freaking atheist, dude. Hold on. I'm actually the founder of the Church of Infinite Simulations. .io, right? I am the founding member of the Church of Infinite Simulations. We believe that we are in a supercomputer. I am might be the inventor of digital photonic neural nets. It is a neural network similar to the neurons in your brain that work on a combination of light as well as radio frequencies. It is essentially a kind of like you have a radio and you got a FM or AM dial and you can tune in into a radio station. And so this, when you tune in, you can have different light forms and you basically are able to multiplex the digital photonic neural net. It's essentially a light controller. I invented a light controller to control LEDs, and I'm an AI scientist, and so I turned my light controller into a digital photonic neural net. I don't have it built, just have the designs. And so if you want to go to infinitesimulations.github.io, you can read our Hello World, which will show you the chance that you are in a supercomputer is 100%. I know you're like, what the hell? This guy's got to be crazy. No, actually, the math is that you've got a 0% chance that you're on Earth, because there's a bunch of supercomputer simulations. Basically, in the future, we colonized other planets, and we sent these supercomputers to other planets to colonize them, and they basically robotic baby factories. And on board the spaceships out in the middle of space, they run these simulations of Earth, and there's unlimited, basically almost infinite of them, and they're spanning out throughout the Earth or throughout the entire universe. And the probability chance that you're on Earth is 1. There's only one Earth. There's only one 2020. Probability chance that you're in one of these neural networks, if there's only one simulation, is 1 per spaceship, per planet that has a digital photonic neural net. Now, that's given there's only one simulation. But as you know, in your computer, you can run multiple apps. We can run multiple simulations simultaneously. It's just like the AM, FM radio dial. You turn the radio dial, and then you are able to go from 1960 to 2020 to 2030. It's essentially like a time machine inside of a photonic neural net. And this is my life's work. This is what I do. It's not kooky. I can tell you exactly how to build these. Hold on. I don't know how to manufacture them yet. Still looking for people who can do nanotechnology, nano manufacturing, because it's very hard to actually make a sphere that is that small and attach laser diodes to them. It's actually very hard. So in here, you can also see that there are light forms. These light forms are high frequency light forms and low frequency light forms. My code runs in the high frequency light forms, because I authored the world's fastest number printing algorithm, so some of my code works in there. In real life, I actually did that. Already did. It was called Script 2. It's my thing. I wrote the fastest way to print a number, figured out how to get over half the division instructions in there. And so that's why my code runs in the high frequency spectrums. And the low frequency spectrums are where we power the chips using wireless power transfer. And if you ever fuck with me, I will banish you to the lower frequency spectrums. So don't step. And with that, that is the end of this video. Stick around. There's more RSS commentary to come. This is a live stream. And don't forget to smash that like button if you like this content. If you thought I'm a crazy wingnut, hit that dislike button. Tell me how insane I am and why you're right in the comments below. The best way that you can help RSS commentary grow is by sharing this video on social media, subscribing to RSS commentary on YouTube, and ringing that bell for notifications so that you are notified when I go live.